The lights dimmed at WWE headquarters as Rey Mysterio walked into the boardroom carrying a briefcase that would change everything. What he was about to reveal would expose 20 years of systematic racism, destroy careers, and force the billion-dollar empire to face its darkest secrets. Nobody saw it coming. The masked legend they thought they controlled was about to unmask them. "Vince," Rey said, his voice cutting through the silence, "this ends today." What happened next sent shockwaves through the entire wrestling world and beyond. Rey Mysterio's documentary didn't just expose WWE's racism, it demolished their corporate image so completely that stock prices crashed, sponsors fled, and the company nearly collapsed overnight. But here's what nobody knew. Rey had been secretly recording everything for 2 decades. Every racist comment, every buried storyline, every talented Latino wrestler they deliberately sabotaged. The evidence he compiled was so damning, the WWE's legal team reportedly went into crisis mode within hours of the documentary's release. And we're about to show you exactly what Rey captured that made WWE executives panic like never before. The beginning of the end Rey Mysterio's journey from WWE's biggest Latino star to their most dangerous whistleblower began in 2019, when he witnessed something that changed everything. During a creative meeting, Rey allegedly heard a WWE executive say, "Mexican wrestlers are just spot monkeys for the real stars." That moment sparked a 5-year investigation that would bring down WWE's carefully crafted public image. "I realized I wasn't just fighting for my career anymore," Rey would later reveal in his explosive documentary. "I was fighting for every Latino wrestler who never got their chance because of the color of their skin." What Rey discovered next was even more shocking. WWE had maintained what insiders called the List, a secret document ranking wrestlers by their marketability to American audiences. Latino wrestlers were systematically rated lower regardless of their talent, popularity, or drawing power. The documentary revealed screenshots of internal emails that were so racist they cannot be shown on most platforms. But Rey had them all. The secret recordings. For 5 years, Rey wore hidden recording devices to WWE events, creative meetings, and backstage areas. The footage he captured revealed executives using racial slurs when discussing Latino talent, deliberate burial of storylines, featuring Latino wrestlers' comments about keeping the main event picture American, systematic pay disparities based on ethnicity. The most damaging recording showed a WWE board meeting where executives discussed the Mexican problem and how to minimize their screen time without appearing racist. But the bombshell that destroyed WWE's defense was a recorded phone call between Vince McMahon and a major advertiser. In the call, McMahon allegedly promised to keep the ethnic wrestlers in the mid-card where they belong. When this recording surfaced in Rey's documentary, 3 major sponsors immediately pulled their contracts worth over $200 million combined. The documentary that changed everything. Rey's documentary, titled Behind the Mask, WWE's Hidden Racism, premiered simultaneously on Netflix, HBO Max, and social media platforms. Within 24 hours, it had generated over 50 million views and sparked a global conversation about racism in sports entertainment. The documentary featured 47 hours of secret recordings, testimonies from 23 current and former WWE wrestlers, internal documents proving systematic discrimination, financial records showing pay disparities, communications with advertisers about audience preferences. The most devastating moment came when Rey played a recording of his own contract negotiation. WWE executives could be heard discussing how they needed to keep Rey happy but not too powerful, because Mexican champions don't draw money. This was the same Rey Mysterio who had generated over $500 million in revenue for the company. The corporate meltdown. Within 48 hours of the documentary's release, WWE's stock price dropped 40%. Major sponsors including Coca-Cola, Ford, and Nike suspended their partnerships. The company's board called an emergency meeting, and several executives were reportedly asked to resign. WWE's initial response was a generic statement about diversity and inclusion, but the damage was irreversible. Social media exploded with WWE racism hashtags, and Latino wrestling fans organized worldwide boycotts. The most damaging revelation was that WWE had deliberately limited Rey's championship reigns because market research showed that Latino champions tested poorly with core demographics. But Rey wasn't finished. The documentary's final act revealed that WWE had been secretly collaborating with television networks to minimize Latino representation across all wrestling programming. Emails showed executives bragging about keeping wrestling American while publicly promoting diversity initiatives. The aftermath and reckoning Rey's documentary forced WWE into the biggest crisis in company history. Within weeks, 5 executives resigned or were terminated. WWE implemented external diversity. Auditing, the company paid undisclosed settlements to multiple Latino wrestlers, new policies requiring diverse representation in main events, mandatory anti-racism training for all employees. Rey himself received death threats, but also unprecedented support from the wrestling community and civil rights organizations. His courage to speak truth to power inspired wrestlers from all backgrounds to share their own experiences with discrimination. The documentary won 3 Emmy Awards and sparked congressional hearings about workplace discrimination in sports entertainment. 1 year later, WWE's culture had transformed completely. Latino wrestlers finally received main event opportunities, pay equity was established, and diversity became a genuine priority rather than a marketing slogan. Rey Mysterio had done more than expose racism. He had forced an entire industry to confront its demons and change. The lasting impact. Rey Mysterio's documentary didn't just expose WWE's racism, it created a movement that spread throughout sports entertainment. Other wrestling companies began examining their own practices, and wrestlers worldwide gained the courage to speak out against discrimination. Most importantly, young Latino wrestlers now enter the industry knowing that their heritage is a source of strength, not a barrier to overcome. Rey proved that sometimes the greatest victory doesn't happen in the ring. It happens when you remove the mask from injustice itself. This incredible story shows the power of one person's courage to challenge an entire system. Rey Mysterio risked everything to ensure future generations of wrestlers would face a more equal playing field. If this story inspired you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more untold stories of courage challenging corruption. Ring that notification bell so you never miss these incredible tales of justice prevailing against all odds. What do you think about Rey's courage to expose this systematic racism? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The untold aftermath. What really happened behind closed doors. But there's more to this story that even Rey's documentary couldn't reveal. What happened in the weeks following the exposé was even more shocking than the original scandal. 3 days after the documentary's release, Rey received a mysterious package at his home. Inside were additional recordings, but these weren't his. Someone else inside WWE had been documenting the racism, and Rey's courage had inspired them to come forward. The anonymous whistleblower, who later identified themselves as a former WWE writer, had captured even more damaging evidence. Phone calls between WWE and major television networks discussing ethnic quotas for wrestling programming. Emails from advertisers requesting fewer Mexican wrestlers in prime spots. Contract negotiations where Latino wrestlers were offered significantly less money for identical work. Most shocking of all was a recorded strategy meeting where executives discussed creating fake injury storylines to remove successful Latino wrestlers from major events. If Eddie Guerrero hadn't died, one recording revealed, we would have found a way to bury him too. The revelation that WWE had considered manufacturing injuries to sideline Latino talent sent shockwaves through the wrestling community. Eddie Guerrero's family issued a statement expressing their horror at the company's callous attitude toward his legacy. Rey's response to these new revelations was immediate and powerful. In a follow-up documentary released just 6 months later, he presented this additional evidence alongside testimonies from over 40 wrestlers who had experienced discrimination. The second documentary, titled The Final Bell: Wrestling's Reckoning, became the most watched wrestling documentary in history. It forced WWE to implement not just policy changes, but a complete restructuring of their creative and executive departments. Today, Rey Mysterio's legacy extends far beyond his in-ring accomplishments. He transformed from a masked superhero entertaining crowds to an unmasked hero fighting for justice. His courage to speak truth to power didn't just change WWE. It inspired athletes across all sports to challenge discrimination wherever they found it. The masked man who once fought predetermined battles had won the most important real fight of his career.